Welcome to Mastering Your Emotions. I'm your host, Samir Vyas, and I'm really looking forward to working with you guys today in this program. Thank you so much for taking the time, taking the attention, and the focus to turn in and tune in to what it is to learn about how to master your emotions. So this is going to be a very informative, powerful workshop for you guys. And obviously, we're here to understand how to work with our emotions. Our emotions, when we don't know how to truly deal with them, it throws our lives upside down, right? How many of us have experienced emotional overwhelm? Raise your hand. No one's watching. It's just you. It's important that you start to recognize what you're dealing with. That's the center of focus of this workshop. Learning how to recognize what the emotions are when they come up, how to deal with them, how to properly process them, and release them so that we can come back to a place of harmony, calmness, and clarity. Because fundamentally, when we lose ourselves within our emotions, everything becomes foggy, everything becomes hazy. We can't see clearly our future. We start interpreting the present moment with the overwhelm and our own emotional cocktail of what we think is happening. Tell me, how many times have you been triggered by somebody and it's not actually what they said, it's just how they appear to you. You took in their body language a certain way. You took in, maybe they said something specifically. They didn't mean it that way, but you took it a certain way. And boom, you were triggered. Your emotions flooded in. And now everything you associated with that meaning threw your whole balance off, your own equilibrium. The problem with this is we lose control. We lose our power whenever an emotion comes up that we don't know how to deal with properly. And then what happens? We are at the effect of what others are doing to us. We're at the effect of external circumstances. We're at the effect of situations and experiences that are outside of us. That is not good. That's not good if we're going to learn how to actually have balance in our life. If we're going to learn how to actually take on the unknown with a certain amount of self-control. The reality is there's very little, if anything, that we have control over, but we can choose how to respond to situations. And that requires a level of focus, consciousness, and awareness. And so the center of this process, the center of this program is to give you a little awareness about emotions, how to deal with your emotions, and to give you some tools, tactics, and techniques to deal with your emotions when they get triggered. We're going to be going over a couple of things. What are emotions? What are emotions for? The cycle of emotions, how to process your emotions, dealing with anger, dealing with grief, dealing with shame. Some of the big emotions, the heavy ones, that a lot of us don't know actually how to manage and deal with. But when they are triggered, we're thrown off. All of a sudden, our whole life experience feels like it's less than. We don't feel any sense of ourselves in those moments. And it's very difficult for us to actually create the way we want to create and show up the way we want to show up. That's why this is so important. And I'm so excited to get involved with you guys right now and get into the meat of this, because this is going to change your life. It's going to change the way you approach yourself when emotions get triggered. It's going to change the way you deal with people when they're triggered. And you're going to fundamentally learn how to not show up in loss of your own self-control when an emotion arises. And that's the main thing here, because let's go over this. When you have an emotion come up, right? Let's say, for instance, anger, but anger is actually coming up as a way to respond to something you're feeling deeper than that. When anger comes up, most of the time we're not feeling heard. And when we're not feeling heard, that's when anger starts to rise. And when it starts to rise, reaches a point in where we lose control of it. Because at that point, the feeling inside, I'm not being heard, I'm not being acknowledged, I'm not being heard. And when that happens, we react into a way of getting heard, getting attention, right? So let's go over a couple of things just to give you the outline. What are emotions? Emotions. Energy in motion. Emotions. So we are energy. We understand this. We know this through science. We know this through spirituality. We know this through our direct experience. We know that our bodies, they're changing constantly. We know that everything that's happening in our experience is constantly changing. This is very clear to us. But is there something that is certain amidst our experience? I want you to take a moment right now. Are you the same person you were 1 year ago? Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Are you the same person you were yesterday? It's a very simple question. Part of us wants to say, no, I am different. My thoughts, beliefs, opinions, experiences have all molded and shaped me to effectively show up differently. And in turn, I can't say I'm the exact same person, correct? But there is something that is underlying, that carries a thread that allows us to continually address and identify with our experience as ours. This is what we are calling ourself. So what is ourself? For a lot of us, we have a somewhat sense of ourself. For others, feels like we have no sense of ourself. The self that I'm talking about, that I'm going to keep bringing your awareness and attention to, is the sense of awareness that allows for all your experience to unfold. Just like this back wall behind me, there is a backdrop to your life experience, and that is unmoving, unaffected, and unchanging, regardless of the thoughts, the emotions, the physical experiences and interactions you have. And this is the backdrop, the ocean of awareness. Awareness is the container that allows for all experience in its myriad of forms to take place. And it's that awareness that is inherent, intrinsic. In fact, it is who you are. Everything else arises in front of awareness, within awareness, but it doesn't actually affect or change awareness. Awareness is almost like space. It allows for everything to be, without none of those things within that space taking away from space. We can create thoughts that allow us to shape and compartmentalize portions of space, like a room, but the space within the room is not separate from the space outside of the room. And similarly, when we have ideas that take up space in our mind, what happens is we think that we have taken away a part of ourselves from a momentary experience. But the truth is, the experience is whole, always. What is separating us from the wholeness of our direct experience are our thoughts. And we're going to look at thoughts a little bit deeper. Think of a Post-it note. If you have one Post-it note, it's not very strong. If I write something on it, my name is Samir, and I rip that Post-it up, it's very easy to just throw it away. It has no strength. A thought is similar. Initially, every thought is neutral. It has no particular power of its own. But with the repetition of that thought over and over, belief becomes associated with that thought. When a belief arises, think of that Post-it note being stacked up 100 times over. Think of a phone book. Phone book is much harder to rip up. Similarly, when you have a belief about something or yourself, and you have given it a lot of attention, a lot of your own investment, your focus has gone into that thought so much that you believe this thought wholeheartedly. Well, now it takes a certain amount of energy to dismantle that belief. And for many of us, we don't actually dismantle our own beliefs. We allow them to take up space in our mental sphere, almost like furniture. They become stable holds for certain understandings of our life, for the people in our life, and for ourselves. And for a lot of people, what happens is we connect our dots with all these internal beliefs, and we think that is who I am. And so this is what I will refer to, this bundle of beliefs, bundle of thoughts that have been believed in over time, as our ego, our constructed self, the self that has been adopted on top of the unchanging backdrop of awareness. This is so important because most of our emotions, when they get triggered, it is because one of our beliefs is being rocked, rattled, and shaken, either by something outside or by another thought inside. And when we have created a certain identification with our thoughts and beliefs within, then our bodies respond in turn because our safety is being threatened. This is so important to understanding how to navigate and deal with your emotions, how to actually learn to consciously calm yourself down when your emotions arise, right? So looking at energy in motion, our emotions are energies that are coming up, and usually they're being triggered first by our thought, and then through that triggering, our emotional response gets activated. Because understand the depth of our body is that it is actually very inert, very neutral. It's our mind that colors our experience and in turn tells the body to respond. Our experience is constantly being stimulated. We are constantly taking in data and we're taking in information through our five senses. And then our mind is working at such fast speed to interpret that data and to give you a mental model of your experience so that you can navigate it better. And obviously, we've all heard this 1,000 times. Our mind has been programmed for millennia throughout generations to keep us alive. And in turn, our nervous system similarly has been programmed for our long-term survival. And so it is programmed with a certain amount of fear in turn as a way of projecting outward things to avoid and things to move toward. Pain and pleasure. Avoid pain, move towards pleasure. These are the basics. We understand this for the most part. But what most people don't understand is how to undo the internal hooking that takes on a massive form when we are identified with something and our emotions now are being thrown off. So this is going to lead us into what are our emotions for? What are they telling us? Our emotions are our way of navigating our subjective experience. So what does that mean? It's a nice way of saying they're guides. They're telling us as input comes in based on the emotion, whether you like the experience, whether you don't like the experience. Simple enough. We're going to go into this a little bit deeper now. Underlying that basic experience we're looking for, it's control. But fundamentally, we have no control. And this is a very deep primal fear. Fear itself as an emotion, it is the emotion of having no control. When fear is activated, our nervous system goes into a survival response because it is going to try and use whatever tools that are available within it to be aware and to be on guard and to protect itself because it doesn't know what dangers lie ahead. So fear, if we can really highlight this, is the emotion of no control. And we experience this as babies and as children, as teenagers, and definitely as adults. We're constantly faced with the unknown. Now, as a child, you rely on your parents and caregivers to lead you forward into that unknown. And so trust is implicit in the ones who are leading you forward. That will lead into its own conversation when trust is broken. Now, when a child turns into an adult, they have to use their experience from the past and start to navigate how they're going to approach new experiences. Now, this is the whole game of life, right? Learning how to make choices and to not die. Very simple. But when we are met with a constantly changing landscape, there's a lot that we don't have control over. There's a lot that we don't know how to deal with. There is a lot of new developments in our society that are constantly being taken in by our brains and our processing systems. And a lot of us have no clue how to make anything of it. A lot of the transformations of the last 20 years have been things that no generations prior have encountered. The advent of the internet, social media. So how do we deal with these things? Puts a lot of us into a hyper state of fear because we don't know what it means about us and our safety. So when fear is activated, right, this is the emotion of I have no control. So I'm going to do what is most efficient based on my preconditioning, my pre-programming to stay safe. This is when habits come in. This is when reactions come in. We're going to do what we learned to do as a way of hopefully keeping us safe. So fear, now that we understand the baseline emotion, fear, what is above fear? Sadness. Sadness comes in after fear because we feel sad. We have no control. It's a state of helplessness, feeling that things are so out of my hands. It makes me sad. This emotion is there to show you within that something in my experience is making me feel helpless, powerless, without control. Sadness is the emotion that is above fear. In fear, we're often put into a state of helplessness, but fear can activate some of our primal instincts, which can get us through a short-term experience. But there is a fundamental sense of anxiety because we don't know how to deal with the situation long-term. So we don't know how to create safety. Think of the wild for a moment. Nature exemplifies this very differently than humans. If you have a gazelle being chased by a lion, the moment that the gazelle notices in its awareness that there is danger lurking, it goes. Now it goes and runs, and if the lion is prowling and then starts to chase it, that gazelle will run until the lion stops chasing it, and then the gazelle will have a safe distance to relax, come back into the moment, come out of the hyper fight and flight state, and return to eating. The difference with a gazelle and a human is we have an intellect, and the intellect, powerful tool that it is, allows us to dissect our experience, and reflect on our own death. When we as human beings can reflect on our own death, this actually changes us from our animal brothers and sisters and makes us distinct because we can contemplate our mortality, which then in turn informs us about the choices we're going to make. So how are you going to live if you know you're going to die? This is a constant thought that lives within every human being and is a constant form of inspiration or anxiety. So you have this as a part of the equation of understanding how you're navigating your fear. So we go through fear as no control. Sadness comes in because we are sad or feeling helpless that we have no control. And that leads to the third emotion, which is very important to understand. Anger is one layer above sadness. Anger comes in to act in some sense like a superhero. Sadness, I'm going to shift you. I'm going to change something in your direct experience so you feel less helpless. I'm going to use the energy that I have to create some change in the world, in the physical environment, with the people around us. And oftentimes when anger comes in, we all know what happens, right? We say things we don't mean, we do things we regret, but all of that comes in as a show of power, a show of, I have some control. So fear, no control. Sadness, sad because I have no control. Anger, I'll give you some control. I'll give you some certainty in your experience. I'll alleviate that existential dread that you're experiencing, and I'll do something about it. Now, might not always be the wisest thing to do, but it is a way of relieving the emotions that the system is experiencing. It is a way of providing a solution to the feeling that is deep within, of helplessness, of uncertainty. When we can change our experience, we feel empowered and we move up the vibrational ladder of our emotions. We move from the low emotions, the negative emotions, the fear and the sadness, and we start to move up towards the place of empowerment. If we can learn how to move beyond anger into enthusiasm, into excitement, into passion, into joy, we can eventually move into a place where we're functioning with energy that is positively fueling our thoughts, our feelings, and our experience. But for most of us, and this is why we're talking about this, we're in a cycle. You go from anger, and now there's regret usually, or a feeling of, I did need to do that. I did need to explode. I did need to yell at that person. I did need to punch that hole in the wall, right? I did need to throw that tantrum to get something to change in my experience. But often anger, if it's not properly channeled, right, it leaves us feeling regret, sad, and eventually we come back into sadness. And from sadness, we eventually have to face the underlying fear that we're alone. And this is again connected to some of the core things that we need to understand about our emotions. We have several root feelings that every human being wants to feel. They stem from our innate worthiness. And I say this very, very clearly. We are innately worthy by our own being. Every human being is. This is the truth. Every being is worthy of love, is lovable. This is the truth. And every being truly is beautiful, not by societal standards, but by life standards. Nature never would judge any animal, any creature, any plant as ugly. They all make up a beautiful mosaic within her garden. Every human being has beauty, is beautiful. And most of us, when we have judged ourselves based on comparison, external standards, our own judgments, we begin to unravel a deeper feeling inside of shame. And shame causes us to go into hiding. These are very important things to understand. Fear, when we have fear inside, fear will arise when we feel that we are unworthy. And in turn, we are useless. And in turn, we must not be lovable. When we feel unworthy, often the parallel feeling is being unlovable, feeling unlovable. Now, what is so important to understand about these things is these root feelings. If you feel unworthy because people have abandoned you, you have been rejected, you have been judged, you have been shamed. If you are feeling unlovable for the same reasons, People have left you, judged you, they have withdrawn from you, right? They've hurt you, they've abused you. These are all reasons that activate this deep feeling inside that we are unlovable. Now, how does one address these root feelings? Because whenever you feel unlovable, whenever you feel unworthy, what happens is our emotions get triggered as a result of those feelings. We feel ashamed. We feel sad. We feel anger, but usually towards ourselves. And that can transform into self-hate, right? These are very deep, nuanced experiences, but their underlying roots are the same. And this is why it's so imperative to understand how to address these root feelings so we can learn to deal with the emotions on top that get activated. I want to draw your awareness for a moment to an example. I want you to just think for a second of an ocean. An ocean is a great example of awareness, that the ocean accepts everything inside it, right? Doesn't matter if it's a human, if it's a fish, if it's any other kind of little critter or creature, it accepts everything. I want you to understand awareness accepts everything. It just is, just allows. And it allows for every experience, every thought, every emotion, every feeling. Understand that our thoughts are very similar to the waves of the ocean. The waves of the ocean are never going to stop, right? If I was to ask you, could you stop the waves? You'd think I'm a fool. There's no way you can ever stop the waves. Similarly, our thoughts, they are these waves, and you can never stop them. So why are we trying to? Why are we compartmentalizing thoughts? Why are we saying we like some and don't like others? So this is very important to understand. Once you understand that thoughts are neutral inherently, very much like waves, you can let go of your identification with them. This is a key. Now, underneath the waves, what's more pulling is the current. Current, that drags you in, you're in for trouble. This is the power of our emotions. A thought may trigger an emotion, but once an emotion is activated, it'll pull you into its current. And if you don't know how to deal with it, you'll be pulled away far from where you were, and you'll be unsure of how you got where you are. And so, how do we deal with emotions? Well, let's go a little bit deeper. Underneath the current, if we go deeper than the current, it's the vast open blue, the deep sea, where the current doesn't have sway, nor do the thoughts or the waves above. So similarly, the container of our experience, our being, the awareness that we are, has these layers in where we can put our focus. If we put our focus on our analytical mind, the thoughts that are streaming through our consciousness, yeah, they're going to just never stop. And there's always going to be something for you to watch and focus on. And some may trigger you. If you go deeper and you're dealing with your emotions and you're wondering, how do I relieve myself of these heavy, deep feelings that I'm experiencing? The sadness, the shame, the guilt, the fear, the rage. How? Well, we have to learn that there is a space deeper than those emotions that is unaffected by them. And in fact, can hold space for those things to happen without actually affecting the whole. This is very important. When an emotion gets activated, you have a choice. This is the point of power that exists within all of us. Where do we place our attention? So, leading from this example, I want you to think of a whirlpool. Now, if we have a whirlpool, think of a whirlpool in the ocean. If you get caught in it, you're stuck. it's very unlikely that you're going to come out. For most of us, we drown, right? Similarly, when you're dealing with a whirlpool in your inner experience, in your mind and emotions, it might be the case that something happened and it's got you thinking anxious thoughts. You're scared. You feel like you're not good enough. It's triggering now the deep emotions of sadness, fear, shame. And these emotions are going round and round. And you don't know how to get through them to come and pop out the bottom and go into that deep blue where you're free again from them. Well, we have to understand that an emotion is a response to an underlying feeling, and you cannot avoid your feelings. This, I need to repeat again, you cannot avoid your underlying feelings. This is so important for you to understand. If you feel unworthy, what's on the other side of that feeling? Worthiness. If you feel unlovable, what's on the other side of that feeling? That you're so loved. You're lovable. If you feel ugly, if you feel that way, what's on the other side of that feeling? Feeling beautiful, right? This is very important. When you can understand that on the flip side of all those feelings that you're really avoiding inside, there is a flip, a counter on the other side of that coin of something you do want to feel. The thing that you want to feel the most. If you're feeling powerless, what's on the other side of that? You want to feel powerful, right? So you can reverse engineer this for yourself as you're going through your own inner process to determine what is the feeling I'm really avoiding. Because if I see that, I know what's on the other side. And you can do it the other way. If you don't know what the feeling is you're avoiding, because you're avoiding it so well, you're too smart for your own good, ask yourself, what is the feeling you want to feel? And this is important because when you can identify what this feeling is, the emotions are as a result of you avoiding that feeling. So if it's the feeling of being unlovable, feeling of being unworthy, this is the key behind resolving your emotions. Pay attention. You have to feel the feeling you don't want to feel. I'm going to say it again. You have to feel the feeling you don't want to feel so that you don't have to feel it again. So what do I mean by that? When you sit inside and you're feeling sad, you're feeling crippled by your shame, because you feel, I'm not lovable. I don't think that I'm worthy of love. I've made mistakes, and now your thoughts are coming in, right? I've done things. I've hurt people. I'm not where I want to be. And all the judgment starts piling in. You have to recognize you're at the top of the ocean right now in that whirlpool. You're going with the thoughts, the judgments. So you got to sense, what is the emotion? I got to notice with my awareness, what is the emotion under these thoughts that are pulling me down into this negative spiral? Feel sad. I feel sad because I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know how to feel worthy of receiving love. I don't even know if I'm worthy. So you go, and now you have to sense the feeling. I feel unlovable. I feel like nothing I could do would make me worthy of just being loved for who I am. And so now you got to sit with that feeling. And this is the hard but most powerful part. To allow yourself the space to feel how you're feeling without judgment. This is the gift of the backdrop of awareness of who you are. You're so caught by the story that is coming through your mind, the judgments, the ideas, what you're attributing the meaning behind all this, that you're condensing your experience internally, and your emotions are coming up louder and louder because your emotions are pointing to what you don't like. I don't like feeling this way, so I feel out of control. I feel sad. I feel helpless. I feel scared. But how do I relieve those emotions? How do they subside and I get relief and pop out the bottom of that whirlpool where I can finally breathe again? I have to feel the root feeling. This is the key, guys. I hope you're taking notes. I hope you're listening. You need to learn to feel the root feeling. You first identify it, and then you have to sit with it. And you have to sit with it without identifying with it, without judgment of it, so that it can just be acknowledged. And when it's acknowledged, you can then accept it and it will be released. Understand energy in motion. Energy wants to keep moving. But when you stick yourself with a certain story and you've identified with your belief and your focus and your investment of attention, certain stories in our mind have a weight to them. We talked about this earlier. A belief, when we really believe in something we believe in, there's a power to that. And it can be good or bad. It can lead us into action. So if you have a belief that you're unworthy, if you have a belief that you're unlovable, you're not good enough, these have some weight to them. And it requires laser-like focus and attention to get to the center so that you can obliterate it. Literally exploding that feeling from within. And you all have this power within you. We have certain core capacities to observe something, to give something our attention, to focus on something, to believe in something, and to be interested or curious by something. These are the powers of the mind. And when used appropriately, they can help you. When used inappropriately, you can be living in your own self-made prison, suffering within your own emotional storms, unsure how to get out, feeling trapped, isolated within your thoughts, feeling like no one understands. Now, something that is needing to be made very abundantly made clear to you, there is no thought that you are. Let me repeat that. Not any thought can be you. What? What do you mean by that? Not one thought. I don't care how great a thought it is, how good a thought might get you moving. That thought is not you. What does this mean? No thought can be the awareness. You are awareness. You're not thoughts in awareness. I hope you're following. Every time you get fixated on a thought, every time you give it attention, you magnify it, and it takes more focus from you and more attention. You're feeding a thought and creating a bubble that you're observing your experience through, then interpreting your experience through that bubble. But that bubble isn't inherent to you. You gave it that power. That power is inherent to who you are. And you are awareness, that which is observing every thought, that which is observing every emotion, that which is observing every feeling in your experience. And this is beautiful because this is also the source of your power and freedom to get beyond all the emotional cycles you're going to experience in your life. This is why this is such an important workshop, and it's called Master Your Emotions, because once you understand the core principles that you are not ever any thought, that no thought can threaten you, and no thought can truly trigger your experience, because you understand I'm not my thoughts. I'm that which observes my thoughts. I'm that which is watching as that pure, unaffected, unchanging awareness in which all my experience arises. Now, for many of you listening, this may be the first time you're hearing this, and you might be like, ears opened, eyes raised. Awareness? What is this guy talking about? I'm awareness. That's going to be something we go in the next program a little bit deeper. In this program, I want to bring your attention powerfully to these core principles that are unchanging for all human beings. Because once you can understand these principles, you will be empowered to no longer be a victim to your mind and a slave to your emotions, and you will know how to actually deal with changing internal states. And that's powerful. And that's why this is so important for you to get. So we've talked about a couple of things so far, and I hope you're following. First and foremost, energy and motion. These are our emotions. Energy wants to move. When we repress our emotions because we don't feel safe to express them, when we suppress them and we feel them, but we're not allowing them out, we suppress them down, we are sticking ourselves with emotions that naturally want to move and come out of us. Very important awareness for you. You don't process your emotions. Your emotions process you. Let that land. You don't process your emotions. Your emotions process you. This is extremely important to understand, because when an emotion is arisen within your experience, call it anger, sadness, fear, shame, grief, you don't really get the ability to run away from it. You can suppress it, you can deny it, you can ignore it, but it doesn't remove it. This is important. Many of us, many of you listening, are distracting yourself from your gnawing feelings inside and the emotions that you're running away and around from using distractions. Take a minute to recognize, are you a procrastinator? At least by your own account? That just means you're avoiding that which you're experiencing. When you don't feel safe to experience your own experience, I understand. That's why. And for many of us, this is a result of childhood training, conditioning. We were not allowed to display, exhibit, and express our emotions. But as an adult, as a mature adult on the path of self-mastery and emotional intelligence, you have to understand, if you don't give yourself a safe place to express your emotions, they're going to kill you, literally. When our emotions do not get expressed, they wreak havoc on our nervous system and our physiology. They throw off our bodies. And many people are using substances, prescribed or unprescribed, to try and alleviate these unresolved emotions. This is why this is so important, because when you get to the root of the underlying emotional blocks that you're dealing with, that is the repressed feelings that you don't want to feel, you create tremendous change within your physiology and your physical experience. When you finally bring awareness to the gnawing feelings and underlying emotions you're experiencing, and you acknowledge them, and in turn feel through them, and realize they could never be you or who you are, and never define you or who you are, you can accept them safely, just like an ocean, accepting whether it's a whale, a shark, or a little tuna, I guess tunas are big. Doesn't matter what is within the ocean, it accepts it. Good, bad, ugly. Doesn't matter what kind of person walks in the ocean. The ocean doesn't discriminate. Neither does awareness. The awareness of yourself is so important to understand as something that can never be contained within a thought. Frees you from the obligation of identifying and justifying your thoughts. This takes away the punch of your inner resistance. Most of us are fighting within ourselves, a war within, between our thoughts of what we want to be, how we think we should be, and what we are experiencing. And often it's something that we judge as it's something that it shouldn't be. And so there's a tension, constant tension. So how do we relieve that tension? You have to understand this core fact. You can never be that which you perceive. There is no way you will ever be that which you see because you are the one seeing. Simple enough. Awareness observes objects of experience. Objects can be physical, but they can also be intangible, like thoughts, emotions, internal body sensations, non-physical. Awareness observes both. And this is why awareness is the key to unlocking your true self-power. Because with awareness, you are able to observe neutrally, just from a place of noticing and inner observation, what is happening. And instead of rushing through your mind to try and get away from what you're experiencing, you can just sit and observe. And when you can sit and observe, you're actually giving the space for that energy to just arise as it naturally needs to be acknowledged by your inner insight, and to be released. When we have a position, though, inside, where we say, this is coming up, I don't like that, what does that mean about me? We start creating a story, we're immediately getting caught in that whirlpool because we're identifying with it. When you identify with the feeling, when you identify with the emotion, then you've given away your power. And hence, you're on your own self-made roller coaster. That emotional cocktail that you're experiencing is throwing you. So how do you gain balance? How do you gain ground? You only can gain ground by finding that which is grounded, that which is your anchor point, your place of centeredness, your place that is unmoving, something that is constant within an infinite experience of change. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is awareness. The awareness of your own self, the self you are that has been watching the entirety of your experience from the time you were a child to this living moment right now. So this is very important because from that place of awareness, which is observing constantly, you're always observing your experience, you're now shifting your attention to it. And in shifting your attention to it, you become powerful because now whatever you observe in front, you can just stay as the one watching and let the thing that comes up in front do its own little dance. This is very important. If you get this, you are miles ahead of most because most people right now are running away from their own direct experience. And in turn, they're running away from the emotions they're feeling, and their emotions are trying to indicate something that they're dealing with inside, that they're feeling in their experience, and they don't know how to get out of that feeling. So they numb themselves, they're sedating themselves, they're creating their own problems for themselves, all as a way of avoiding themselves. So this is a process of actually facing yourself. And the key, as I've been trying to express to you in the clearest way possible, is to learn, where is my attention being focused? Is it being focused on the thoughts that are triggering the emotion? Is it avoiding the deeper feeling? Am I being focused on the emotions and the external triggers as opposed to what I need to be focusing on, which is the underlying feeling, right? This is a call to shifting your attention inside. not being focused on the thing that is causing the emotion. When you lose emotional balance, you have lost the game. You have lost the war. You lost that battle because now you are at the effect of your own nervous system and your reactions and the way that your mind will deal with that fear. So to get ground, to become truly stoic within yourself, you have to learn how to observe. That power of observation doesn't come with effort. It comes with a shift of attention, difference. Awareness is effortless. It's always present. That's your gift from life. The fact that you are aware. Most of us are so distracted by the things in our awareness that we don't actually turn our attention to awareness. So we're not able to actually use it to our benefit. We're caught in the series of our own experiences. So this is to slow things down. It's a call to slow things down in your experience, especially when an emotion is activated. Ask yourself, what am I noticing? Oh, I'm noticing that I'm angry right now. Okay, now what's next? I need to feel that anger. Okay, I need to feel the anger. And if I can feel the anger, I'm going to discern there's a root feeling underneath that anger. Oh, I'm actually feeling really sad or scared about the fact that I don't feel this right now. Or I want to feel this and I don't feel that. So I have to honor that and just feel that right now. And I'm going to feel it and give myself the time, the space, and the energy needed to just feel this and do nothing else. I'm not going to escape myself. I'm not going to run away. And I'm going to sit and feel and be with myself. And this is the key. You just have to learn to sit with yourself, feel the experience, understand you are in a human body having a human experience. Welcome to the club. Embrace it. Stop avoiding it. This is going to save you in your future because you're going to deal with yourself always and constantly. And if you can learn how to become faster at this process of learning to bring yourself back to center when things are all commotioned, you're going to be the winner. Your life is going to change. You're going to be at more peace and you're going to be at a place of greater security and balance within when dealing with difficult, challenging situations, challenging people. And when you learn, this is a very key hack I want to emphasize. When you learn how to deal with your own anger, you immediately have more compassion for other people who are angry because you understand the experience. When you know how to deal with your own sadness, you have more compassion and space for people who are sad. Now, I'm not telling you that it's your choice to go and help those people or clean up their sadness, but you'll understand where they're coming from. You'll be able to better empathize and you'll have a choice. You can leave or you can support or you can be neutral, So I hope this is very clear. We've talked about the cycle of fear to sadness to anger. And most people, when they do express anger, it's reactionary. It's not channeled anger, right? And when we don't know how to channel our anger, often we'll be returning back into that cycle of feeling fear and sadness, anger. And it's just a continuous loop of emotional experiences. And for many people, that's their day-to-day experience, and they feel like that is their life. So this is very encouraging for people who are feeling stuck right now, feeling isolated within their own internal terrain that is chaotic, wreaking havoc inside, on how to start to actually gain ground within. And it is powerful when you start to gain ground within because you've become your own hero. You're like, all of a sudden, wow, my life is changing. I'm changing my life. And it's not requiring drugs. It's not requiring any other person. It's requiring me and learning to be with me and learning to understand that I am not what I thought. Understand, I want to give you this example. If you think of the sun, it would be foolish if I was like, I'm going to use a bed sheet and block out the sun, right? Yeah, you're maybe blocking out your own point of view. You're not blocking the sun. And if we were to take that bed sheet and go with a jet up to the sun, it would be like a pixel, right? Thoughts are the same. When you are holding up your own thought that you believe, you're blocking out your own experience and you're telling yourself something that isn't true to that experience. You're trying to yell to life This is who I am. This is who I believe I am. This is what I think. This is what my experience is showing me. So this is what it is. But it's not. It's a thought that you're believing in. And so you have to decide to put that thought down and turn your attention to that which is behind watching the thoughts. And that's your point of power. And it will always be your point of power. The beauty of an awareness is that once you're made aware, you can never become unaware. And so in some of these seeds I'm giving you, they're going to stay with you forever. And they're going to be in your consciousness as a way that you can return to learn to navigate these in real time when you're dealing with your direct experience. So we've talked about those very important things. Now we're going to go over some practical ways to feel through your experience and to sit. So I want to touch on grief so you have an understanding. Grief is a very heavy emotion, the emotion of loss that gets triggered when we've coming to terms with the fact that something has been pulled out of our life, and it triggers grief, an enormous wave of this emotion of sadness and helplessness combined. And it is so heavy that it can overwhelm our experience, very much like an overcast day that lasts weeks. And we're like, where's the sun? I don't know how to get out of this, right? So grief is an emotion that, you have to address and feel and acknowledge, right? And if you're hearing certain words, I'm repeating them, right? Awareness is the first step. The second step is acknowledgement. Third is acceptance, right? Acceptance doesn't always remove the emotion, but it allows us to remove the tension we have with the emotion so that we can actually allow that emotion to just be as it is. And with grief, we have to learn to consciously say goodbye. Goodbye is not a bad thing, right? It's not bad bye. It's good to say bye. When we say goodbye, we are giving our mind closure. And for many of us, when we have dealt with loss, friends, family, loved ones, physically lost them, they've died, but also lost in the form of you're in a life transition and people who are with you on the journey in the beginning are not with you now, right? All our suffering comes from our mental attachments, our inability to let go of something that has already left our experience. And so that inner feeling of holding on to memory creates this feeling of separation. And it again pulls us away from the moment, and it pulls us into our past, and it triggers the emotions, sadness, helplessness, the feeling of fear. Oh, I could lose more people. I'm losing people, right? I'm losing myself, right? So grief is a process of reconciliation with that which is left. And it's okay to say goodbye. And I'd love to invite you into a process that I do with many of my clients when they're experiencing grief. Different songs work, but if you can go to your Spotify playlist or your Apple playlist or your YouTube and find a song that you resonate with. Song I've used with my clients. It's Billy Joel, Vienna. And play this song. Whatever song you select, you're going to play it. It may have a specific meaning for you, may draw up the emotions of sadness, whatever the feeling is. You're going to play this song on repeat, and you're going to make it so it repeats once. So it just keeps repeating that song over and over. And you're going to play that song with your headphones in a place where you're alone, safe, not going to be disturbed. And ideally, don't put a timeline on it. Give yourself time, maybe an hour, maybe 3. And you're going to play that song over and over. And all you're going to bring your focus to is goodbye. That's your mantra. That's your affirmation. Goodbye. And it's a very powerful process because when you listen to the song, whatever the song is, whether you use Billy Joel's song or use your own, you're going to be listening and the emotions are going to be activated that are naturally activated. Thoughts are going to be activated. You might have the thoughts of the past come through, memories of this person, memories of your past, memories of the things, and you're just going to keep coming back. Goodbye. 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 And when we do that, what's happening is we're consciously choosing to close those doors in our mind. Doesn't mean you're closing yourself off to the people that you are saying goodbye to. Doesn't mean you're saying goodbye as a way of closing yourself off to experience or memory. It means you're closing off the threads of attachment that are keeping you emotionally victim to something that is out of your control. So very much like cutting those threads, you're reclaiming your energy from that grief, from those experiences. And when we consciously say goodbye, it's a return of energy back inwards. All the work that we're doing when we process ourselves and allow ourselves to grieve, allow ourselves to be with our experience, whether it's anger, sadness, or fear, we are reclaiming the parts of ourselves that are lost in a story. And the story is one that our mind has drawn up together through memories, through certain feelings, and is created a very strong attraction for you to believe in. And when these stories have weight inside, they literally take out energy from us that could be used for us in the moment. So when we have things we haven't said goodbye to, old version of ourselves we're saying goodbye to, saying goodbye to parents, saying goodbye to friends, old jobs, old chapters in our lives, you are consciously reclaiming all that energy back into your experience. It's a very powerful process. I highly recommend it, especially if you're dealing with grief right now. If you're going through a life transition and you're finding yourself moving to the next stage and you're wondering, why am I still avoiding the certain actions I need to take? Very likely you're dealing with grief, and grief that you haven't even acknowledged. And this is the case for many people. They don't realize that they're living unconsciously in their thoughts and avoiding some of the deeper underlying emotions that are present. This is a call to consciousness, really. That's what this work is about. You becoming more conscious of your direct experience, so you're more in a place of empowerment within that experience. Without that conscious awareness, you are really at the hands and the mercy of your biology, of your psychology, and of the external world. And really, that's a place of no power. And ultimately, we are, as human beings, in a place of true abundance when it comes to our direct experience. But if we don't know how to navigate our experience, we can feel real feelings of scarcity, like we don't have enough, like we're not enough. And learning how to deal with these emotions associated with those root feelings brings us into the place of powerful abundance. The abundance of what? Ourself. That's really what abundance is about. Abundance is not about material possession and material manifestation. Abundance is you being yourself. And when you can allow yourself to be yourself truly and wholly as you are, that's true abundance. That's when the wealth of the universe will be at your fingertips, because you will be an allowance of your own experience of yourself. Understand, going back to awareness, awareness has no judgment. It's your mind, your ego, that has a judgment on your direct experience. It has a particular judgment on people. It has a conditioned point of view. So it keeps you narrow, keeps you only experiencing life in a very narrow stream. What I'm pointing to with this work of mastering your emotions and recognizing yourself is how to live life truly in magnificent abundance. The abundance of what life can truly be, not what you think it is. It's a difference. Life is filled with infinite opportunities, possibilities. But when we have experienced life because of past pain, trauma, and our own fears and anxieties, we often conclude about what's possible. And if we've never been shown new possibilities, we'll often never even allow ourselves to dream about something different for ourselves. and we'll resign ourselves to the loops and the repetition of what we're used to. But life is much bigger than what you're experiencing right now, and it's constantly changing experience. And if you can learn to embrace that changing experience without having an idea and opinion about how that experience should be, you will be opened up to the magic and the mystery of what is truly possible, and it will blow you away. And so this is, again, as we bring ourselves forward over what is the power of mastering your emotions? Well, you get to be in the driver's seat again of your own life experience. You're no longer at the hands and mercy of what your emotions are and how they are. In turn, you learn that you are able to actually cultivate a safe space for yourself within to process and allow those emotions to be expressed. When we don't allow ourselves to express our emotions, what happens? They don't go anywhere. They're just repressed. And when they're repressed, that means we internally become depressed because we're not allowing what is naturally meant to be expressed, allowance to emerge. So as we move through this process in this workshop, I wanted to give you some very practical awarenesses, very clear instructions on how you can navigate your internal terrain, especially at the height of your own deepest trauma and troubles. Because when trauma gets activated in our nervous system, we're often deregulated from our inner balance. And if many of you are just surviving and coping with your experience, you may be used to these lower emotions I was mentioning earlier. Sadness and fear may be your daily baseline. But what's powerful about processing your emotions and being with them and creating that inner space to detach from the story your mind is creating of those emotions and to just allow those emotions to be and to focus in on the feeling that's underlying that emotion and feeling it so that it in turn unhooks and obliterates the power of that internal belief. You free yourself from the story your mind has been trapping you with, and you see on the other side the wisdom of a new possibility. And that is the power of this work. You can step through past pain and step into possibility. And the possibility of your life being something bigger than the story your mind has, well, that is the magic and the gift of this experience. And that's what I wanted to give you in this workshop. I wanted you to know that regardless of what the emotion is, whether it is shame, and shame is, again, that emotion of feeling unworthy to be yourself, and in turn, you hide yourself. And when you hide yourself, you often don't want to feel that feeling of unworthiness, that root feeling, right? If you're feeling scared because you don't know what's next, you don't know what's going to happen. So ultimately, you're in a place of survival and hiding, right? Learning to feel that root fear and say, I don't know what's next, and acknowledging that feeling of I don't know. It's a very powerful feeling to acknowledge. When you acknowledge the feeling I don't know, the world opens up. New ideas come to you. New opportunities come to you. New experiences. It's very powerful. It's on the flip side of all of these root feelings that we're so avoidant of is everything we want. On the other side of feeling powerless, helpless, supreme power, self-power, power that can't be bought, the power of knowing you have conquered within that feeling that made you feel small. We're all titans by our own right, titans among men. But when you believe the story of your mind, you can feel less than an ant. And this is the power of learning to process yourself and hold space. And what does that mean? To be non-judgmental within your internal experience of what's happening so that you can breathe it out. You can relieve yourself of what the emotions are that are coming up so that then you can return to clarity. And when you can return to clarity, you see everything clearly and you can make the decisions you need to make in that moment effectively. But when you're clouded by emotions, when you're clouded by the mental trappings that are binding you to identify with a certain emotion because you believe something about those emotions, they mean something about you, then you're stuck in your own self-made prison. And it is a process. It takes work to get through all your own self-made trappings, but it's work that is well worth it, because ultimately on the other side is the liberation of your own self. And in turn, you can consciously express yourself. And self-expression is one of the reasons we're all here on this planet, to be ourselves, to be alive, and to enjoy this miracle while we're given this time on earth in these beautiful bodies. But when we are feeling scared, trapped, and isolated within ourselves, and we don't know how to get beyond the tyranny of our mind, I wanted to give you this as a workshop to remind you of some of the key powers that you have within you to deal with the mental trappings that we all have been victim to. And so as I wrap up, I really hope that this has supported you. If this has supported you, please send me feedback. Please let others know about this. And I really look forward to hearing more about how you have overcome and dealt with some of your deepest unresolved emotions, and in turn changed your life, reclaimed new energy, and have been powerfully inspired to create a new future for yourself. So I am so happy that you've taken the time, the attention, and the focus to sit with me here during this workshop. I hope that it's been of value for you, and I look forward to connecting with you in some shape or form. And if we never see each other, be blessed, enjoy your life, and allow yourself to be free.